I didn't want to do live. I thought about doing this as like a video because I don't have very much makeup on and I'm not really ready to be on camera. Dolores Huerta, okay, today or yesterday maybe, she comes out with new information about Cesar Chavez and the relationship and like breaking news, guys. But I want to say, she talks about like it's a secret because it's a secret to most people probably, especially here in America. Most people that really haven't been well educated in the history of the farm working movement or who she is or who Cesar Chavez is not taught in schools unless you look it up and you do the due diligence yourself, or you go about learning it in college. Even in college, they're not going to tell you everything. But for years, I had heard from people who come from Mexico who are not so excited about Cesar Chavez as we are here in America, especially in California and Texas. But I never really understood it. They never went into detail with me because they wouldn't like it. There's a lot of controversy. Cesar Chavez, so much hoopla around this guy, and he wasn't really that great. There's a lot of rumors, but I never really got into detail because I don't really speak Spanish that well, but also I don't live in Mexico. And I've really only been a TJ. But through online and then through family members and people from other places, there's all this talk. My father comes from a family of farm workers. He was a farm worker as a child when they first came here. And then he joined the military for Vietnam. So he was no longer a farm worker. When he came back, he went straight to college. So my father's family worked on the farms while he was out in Vietnam, continued to work on the farms. And then when he came back, there was a little bit more money. Everybody had already finished high school, and there were some of them that were starting careers, had good jobs. So he was the oldest in the family. He was part of the farm working movement when that started. He walked with Cesar and Dolores, and they did all the stuff over here in Northern California. Met him a few times, but I don't know. I'm not going to go ahead and say that they were like besties or anything, okay? I won't blow this all out of proportion. I'm just saying he was part of the thing. And he made me do the research. I was sort of in the middle of this weird situation in high school. I was like, not necessarily being expelled, but I was kicked out of high school, and they put me into a program, a school for the bad kids, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. This is a side story. I hadn't really done anything wrong. I didn't get any fights. I just was tardy. So I was kicked out of school for tardiness. And in the early 90s, mid 90s, that was a big deal. They were sending parents to jail and to prison if their kids didn't go to school. So if you dropped out of high school, you were threatening your parents' lives. And had a situation where we got to go in with the bad kids. We're going to go to school because you can no longer go to this school. And so I don't remember what they call those kinds of schools, but it was only half day. Like you only go till noon because the longer you stay, because it's sort of near or within the regular school, it's just less kids in it. It's like one big classroom. And all the kids, regardless of the years, freshman, senior, whatever, they're all in the same classroom doing different types of work. And so we're only there till noon because if we stayed till the end of the day, there was some risk of them of the bad kids associating and socializing with the good kids in the school. So we had to be separated somehow, some way. And I didn't feel like I belonged there. So I was looking for other ways to finish high school. Anyway, the story is long. I'm going to try to shorten it for you. But I decided to go to independent school instead and teach myself. During that period, I spent a lot of time at home, and we had to go to school like 1 hour a week. And my dad said, okay, well, since you're home, I'm going to teach you some things that you wouldn't learn in regular school. You're definitely not going to learn in independent study, and you probably won't get it at college. So let's, put you in this sort of Chicano, like, training class. You're going to learn about your own history. And growing up, I had gone to reservations, so we did some Native American stuff. There's this college for Native Americans here in Northern California. I don't know that it's still open. For a while, it was pretty run down, and I think that it shut down. But I can't be sure, and I'm not looking it up right now. Anyway, we used to go there for their gatherings, and he would take me to learn stuff from them and take me into the college and have somebody sort of guide me through why this and why that and how this happened and how that happened in the history of the college. And so I learned a lot about that. And then at home, he would show me videos of the farm workers movement, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and some other stuff. My mom had some books about the plays that they did, the campesinos, in, what they did for entertainment and how they sort of dealt with all of this stuff through humor and little musicals out on the farms. So I read the books, I watched the videos, and I learned a lot about it. But what was missing was sort of all the stuff about the rumors that we hear from other places. And that's something my dad never really talked about. Cesar Chavez was the man. There's a park here in my city for Cesar Chavez Park. And they gather there. Dolores Huerta goes there every year for a gathering for him. And you can donate and all that stuff, right? So now she's like 94, 96, I think. And she's coming out with the stories of, how she had 2 children with Cesar Chavez prior to being married, and that she felt like it was more like sexual abuse, the forced to do it because of who he was, and she couldn't say no because, then she might be sort of maybe kicked out or given less of maybe a lower position in what she was doing for the movement. There's a lot of threat for women. So the farm workers movement was about farm workers. It wasn't necessarily about women's rights. But women were always at the forefront of any fights when it concerns Mexicans. We're some of the leading warriors, And even with that knowledge, men will still try to push it down. So it's not surprising, but it is a surprise to a lot of people that he may have done that to people, more people than just her. Apparently, there's a lot of women that went through that, but they're so old now. I don't mean any disrespect, but they're like in their 80s and 90s. There's been stuff that's been said about him couple different people, but apparently Dolores Huerta had been sexually abused or forced to have sex with him twice. And both times she ended up pregnant, maybe more than twice, but twice she felt forced. And both times she got pregnant and she had to hide the pregnancies. So why am I doing this video? And what does this have? Like, duh, you could just look that up on the internet. I'm not just here to give you the information you've read already. My opinion here, not that it matters to anyone, but let's just, from a female's perspective that, grew up actually learning about this stuff, different than most people who don't learn anything about it, just know that it happened, right? Is that I always thought, here's the missing information, the stuff that was missing that never was really clarified for me in all of the education and research. I always thought that Dolores and Cesar were married the whole time, or at least in a relationship, right? And that if I were Cesar Chavez, anybody with that kind of power, usually like Martin Luther King, whatever, they're happy to have as many babies, as many children on this planet as they can have. And people think that they should have as many babies as they can because of who they are and what they represent. And so that legacy can grow and continue to do something for the community. So it's sort of, when you think about it, it doesn't make sense that they would hide the pregnancies and have somebody else raise the babies. Why would you do that? And she says, read the comments. I won't read them, they're pretty long, but you can find them online. But she says that she didn't want to do anything to damage the movement or Cesar's reputation. So that makes sense. When you think about the time that they were in, that sort of, makes sense. But I think it's more along the lines of it being out of wedlock and that everybody saw him like way up here. He was like Jesus, like he was trying to be like the Mexican Gandhi, and he's starving himself, waiting to see if the government cared if he would die or not. And at the backlash they would receive from Mexican people if he had. But so he was becoming a really big deal, and it was America. It wasn't in Africa. It was here, very close to us, and easily traveled to be part of and advocate and walk with everyone. But so I think it had something more to do with being out of wedlock, probably. But also, my thoughts about it are that you may think, oh, that's ridiculous, for the same reasons. He just would have had more children, no problem having more children, especially since he was so highly regarded, or it's because he was such a big name. Well, Dolores Huerta was beaten to a pulp. She almost died from the battery from police officers in protesting peacefully. And because she was part of the leaders in the movement, they attacked her and they put her in jail, bloodied, injured, no hospital care. So what I think really is that had people known that she was pregnant with Cesar's baby, that it's not really just about damaging the movement or doing anything that would go against the movement. It was more about her safety. It's probably something there's a lot of things she doesn't want to say. She's been holding back, but this is probably something also that she wouldn't want to say. So it's not like really I want to out it for her, but I do think that it is safe to say. Well, she just may not be comfortable. And I'm sorry if I'm exposing this, but if you haven't thought about it already, her safety was at stake. Not just hers, but her unborn baby's safety. If they found out that she was pregnant with Cesar's baby, she would have not only maybe have received death threats from people, but the police may have been watching her, and she could have suffered at the hospital. They could have switched the babies. They could have killed the babies at the hospital and told her that they didn't survive. They could have done a lot of things. But because she didn't say that they were Cesar Chavez's babies, it was just anybody's baby. And maybe for the most part, going to the hospital, people either didn't know who she was or were supporters. So they survived. But I think that possibly she saved those babies' lives, and that they could have been in danger, a lot more danger, if they were raising them during that time when they were fighting all the time in the streets. All these people were being attacked. They could have attacked the babies. So later then, Dolores Huerta has other children, probably when it became safer to have them publicly. But apparently they're all family and friends, they all get along with each other and know who each other are. But I feel like there's, if there is any judgment, which there shouldn't be, this woman is 96 years old. She is a queen. She's a leader of, something that gave us a lot of freedom and rights that we have today because of her and everything that she did. I think for a lot of years, forget Cesar Chavez is the name, but Mexicans living even from that time today consider Dolores Huerta the queen of that movement, the leader of that movement. He died so long ago. There's nothing you can do after you die, but it continues. The fight for it continues, and pushing forward and doing more for it continues. And she's at the head of that whole thing. So there should be no judgment in decisions that she made as a young person or at any age. She's never, first of all, it's none of our business anyway. But, I think what a lot of Republicans should be happy about is that she didn't abort the children. She chose to keep them. And I'm sure they're all educated and living well. So, it's a secret. It doesn't make sense that there's a secret, but there's a lot of people who knew about it, and it just wasn't spoken about openly. So I think what the issue is here is that she felt like it was sexual abuse, and there will be a lot of people that will be like, oh, fudge you, how could you say that about our guy? But what I'm saying is that for so many years, she's been top dog, that you can't judge her or deny what she's saying or pass it off as untrue or, go against what she's saying in any way. Like, should say, oh, but she's older, and why didn't she say this earlier? She comes from that time, even though she fought hard for this movement, she still comes from a time where, obviously she didn't feel comfortable talking about her pregnancies. That's for so long, she felt the need to hide it. That's just, how they were raised, and there was never really an appropriate time. But after the Me Too movement and all the things that we're seeing with the Ba.Bls and a lot of women coming forward and talking about the abuse that they've experienced or the harassment, it's a good time to say so. But I think she could have said it 40 years ago, or she could have said it 30 years ago, and I would have been like, everybody would have had her back. There are a lot of people that knew about it. Like I'm saying, like I heard that something was an issue with Cesar Chavez, but nobody will talk about. For so long, I've heard this, and I never knew what they were talking about until now. So I'm not going to deny her or anything that she says. It's her own truth. I'm not in disbelief because, you know, men can be real good at pretending to be the good guy because they're doing something good, but, you know, behind the curtain, it's another story. That's not actually uncommon for a lot of people in history that have done great things. And you think about Lincoln and anybody who helped free the slaves, same difference. They all had slaves. They all impregnated their slaves. They all, treated their slaves like crap, just like everybody else. Just because they helped free the slaves doesn't mean their behavior or their use of words changed to what it is today. We did a lot of work to develop the lifestyle and, how we treat each other differently today. It wasn't an overnight, like, oh, we have rights, everything's different now. It didn't work like that. Same with the Farm Workers Association. It was not ABC 1, 2, 3. It's just not an overnight thing. And if you think about the kind of person that it takes to lead something like that, you have to be harsh, you have to be strong-willed, strong-minded, but you have to, there's something about it where, so obviously, you'll also be the type of person who might be hiding something else that might be, feeling a little bit high and, deserving of things that go against other kinds of rights, like women's rights, which were also fairly new at the time. Yes, they were fighting for equal pay, even for the women in the farm or as farm workers. But women's rights, how fairly new they were. I don't even think they could have a credit card at the time. So they were fighting for equal pay before women could even have a credit card. Okay? Just think about that. That's the time that we're in. And so hiding the pregnancies is like no brainer. I don't think she should have done it. I honestly, aside from maybe keeping the babies safe, I don't think it would have had done anything to the movement. I think everybody just would have been proud that they were having a child together. But I honestly, the only reason that I could think of for it to have been a good idea to hide the pregnancies and have somebody else raise them is for the safety of the babies and to actually get to full term in pregnancy was probably pretty difficult and kind of stressful for her at the time. So, she's one of the strongest living legends, and she's freaking 96. How do you go through all of that and live that long to tell your story at the end of your life, closer to the end of your life? She may live to 110, we don't know, but she's so blessed for what she's done. I'm not even religious, but I believe that if somebody said it, I would believe it. And so I have a lot of respect for her, and you should too. Anyway, that's the topic of the day. If you have anything to say about it, go ahead and comment below. Tell me what you think. It's a great, great topic right now. Everything that's happened in the past couple of weeks, we had Shia LaBeouf, Timothy Chalamet coming out with their strong words that are career damaging. And then we had Michael B. Jordan in Sinners come across with all the best Oscar wins and beat out some of the best movies for that. And so now we have Dolores Huerta shortly after the Oscars being like, wait a minute, I have something to say. It's been just such an, what is it, March 2026 is like probably one of the craziest months to go down in history of just like the biggest, breaking news, entertainment flubs, and, greatest achievements of all time. So some of us like me are having fun, but it's a strange time. This is a weird kind of a year with ICE and everything going down, and the president getting dementia and still being in office, and the firing of so-and-so. And man, I don't even have anything else to say right now, but definitely one for the books. So yeah, thanks for watching and listening, guys. I'm sorry I'm not all made up. I have another story to tell you about an interesting person that I've met that's very relevant right now. So if you're interested in my stories, click that subscribe button so you can be reminded when I have a new video up. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, I will always tell you when I have a new video. My stories are there daily, more often on Facebook than on Instagram. Instagram is just photos and fun videos. But definitely follow me, subscribe, share, and like. Tell everybody about it. And don't be afraid to comment me. Thank you. Thank you for being here. See you later.